Hello everyone, Gene Quinn here again, this time to go over question 5 with you. And in question 5, we simply ask, describe the optional features of your invention. Now, this is going to, like I said when we talked about question 4, this is going to build on the previous question, but please don't go back and cut and paste. Again, approach each question as if it's its own question and don't rewrite things you've already said, at least not in the same exact way. Because if you say them differently, then you're adding additional new information into the patent application that will expand your disclosure. And that's really what we're trying to do here. And particularly with this question, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Because a lot of times inventors are really good at telling people what they've invented, but they're a lot less good at thinking about, well, what else could go into that? So inventors frequently tell me that there is no options. Everything's required. Don't be that inventor. Take a step back and think about it. What features could you add? What features are non-essential in order for the invention to work? Now, when I teach law students how to do this, the way I do it is I use an example of baking a cake. What I ask them is I say, think of all the steps that are required to bake a cake. And I say it very plainly and specifically like I just said it there, because I want you to hear the words I'm choosing. Bake a cake. Okay, so do you have to preheat the oven in order to bake a cake? And the answer is no, you don't. It's a lot easier if you do, but that is not essential. Preheating the oven will allow you to be much more definitive about the length of the cooking time, but you could always just use the toothpick test to tell when the cake is done. Another example, do you have to grease the pan if you're going to bake a cake? No, you don't. Because if your goal is to bake the cake, I didn't tell you how to get it out of the pan. I just said you had to bake the cake. So greasing the pan would be an option. Now, it was a pretty important option for most people, right? Because you don't want to bake a beautiful cake and spend all kinds of time making this beautiful homemade cake and not be able to get it out of the pan. Okay, so some options may seem like they're essential, but they're really still options. Okay, so what you want to think about when you're going and working on questions 4, now we're on 5, is what has to be there and what is optional. Because what has to be there is that which defines the core of your invention and is going to wind up being limiting, because then every articulation of your invention will have to have those core elements. And if it doesn't really need to be there, you don't want to define it as being required. You would rather define it as being optional. Okay, so that's why this question is so important. Give it some thought, think outside the box, and really do think, is it really required or can I characterize it as an option?